Welcome everyone to my channel. This is Vega Headquarters, also known as the Vegaverse, also known as my shit. So let's have some fun. We are doing some character design today. So we're introducing a character. Her name is Hexa, and she is a witch, as are many people in this universe. But more specifically, she is a side character, and our main character meets her on the this is I'm not sure if it's the middle of the book yet. I'm still writing it, so this could be about 25% of the way, or this could be a halfway event. But these characters basically meet at a point where they're doing this, you know, freshman final. This is like their first semester. And so going into this, I was like, okay, I need her doing like a badass walk towards the camera. And the idea was to have these daggers, on the side, maybe like pinning. Actually, no, here was the idea. She's walking towards, her opponent. And I really wanted it to be fierce at first, but I was like thinking contextually of the story. She would not be having a fierce. This is not an entirely fierce moment for her, but to describe her, I guess, magic in a sense. Yes, it is a play on her name, or I guess her name is a play on what she does, but it was only to simplify it in my head, but it kind of fits. So, I kept it. But her name is Hexa, and she uses basically these daggers to set effects, throughout the battlefield and stun people, give them different debuffs, basically to scare them into submission. And so in this particular instance, she was not successful, and she picked a fight that she couldn't finish. So that is where we end up getting a different expression in the end, not this badass woman goddess, But right here, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so what is she gonna wear? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like kind of a, young adult, not too established, but I wanted it to still be sexy, as a young adult, if I was gonna be fighting the battle, yes, I want my armor to look like I got that shit on. So I was really determined to get this fit right, but all of these things just were not looking right. And so I was trying different hair. I was like, okay, maybe we should go bigger. Maybe she needs a tiara. I was really set on this side do though, this flip over. It had to be flip over, at least at this point in the drawing. Wow, this is like a really lengthy process. I was trying so many different things, but the trick really is find the shape that you're, you know, looking for. That's not really that helpful. Here, and here's what actually helped. So I was like, okay, I need to find the shapes, right? There's so many things I liked about this. And I was like, okay, I do want this to have elegance, but it needs to have presence. It needs to have vibrance. This character is, I mean, sass all the way down. She thinks she got it. And by the looks of it, she do to a certain degree. What I really liked about this was the cohesion in terms of the detail. Once I figured, that there was going to be these, well, obviously a cape, but these flaps, it kind of reminds you of the storm. Flaps. I don't know what these things are called. I really need to figure it out, but I was really inspired by that. Although I didn't have that figured out, I was like, okay, let me just block that in. And that definitely informed, the shape of the other things I had going on, like the boots. Like, what is this called? Like her bottom garment is basically metal panties. It was not my brightest moment in terms of design and uh, functionability, but it looks kind. It looks cool. I feel like we're showing a lot of things that, her character qualities, like the tattoos and how those light up. There's a story behind the tattoos. There's a story behind all this stuff. And that really does come as you go through the painting, unless you did all of this, in forethought. So at this point in the story, she's basically in this face off between our team and her team. Her team goes by dagger. It is in part because they all decided to, use daggers at this freshman final, which didn't really play to their advantage, but it was working for at least 2 levels. In this instance, she's walking towards, the battle. She's like, oh, I'm that girl and you're going down. But the original concept was that she's walking in a battle, she has a hex on the floor with her daggers, and she's here to put down some iron. But I was thinking contextually, that's not what was happening at this part of the story. She's actually not necessarily cowering, but she's nervous. She's like, oh, fuck. Like, we picked a fight that I'm not quite sure we can finish. And so that really did influence the expression we get in the end. But I was trying to figure out the color. This was throwing me for a loop. And yes, you can see I was like trying everything, truly. And I was really set on the armor aspect of it all. I was like, okay, this material obviously has to be some type of metallic, have some type of reflectivity, and we need to figure out where that goes. We obviously know that she has to be purplish, pink, whatever. At this point, it was purple. So we need to figure out how we can both incorporate the purple and the metallic features. But it was at this moment I was like, oh my gosh, does this look too like superhero-y? But then I realized there's so many different types of mage, at least in this universe. And some of them are quote unquote heroes. So, maybe Hex is like, I kind of want to give this an industry vibe, This costume has backing and money. And so I think that is what we're going to emphasize in the story. You can see who has the money by what they're wearing. And I like that. I think this really does fit her. She is not necessarily a bad person. No. Well, she's not necessarily a good person either. But she understands fashion. I guess you don't have to be good or bad to understand fashion. But I was sold on this raspberry pink. I was like, ooh, raspberry pink metal. Does it make sense? I mean, it could. Like, what is like carbon fiber? Can't they make that in different colors? I don't know. I don't know anything about carbon fiber. But I just knew that most of these features had to be reflective. And yeah, I ended up having to scrap the whole hair because it just wasn't making any sense in terms of the shape language that I felt fit this character. And I didn't want to redesign everything to make it do so. It didn't seem necessary to me. Oh, I ended up having to make the canvas bigger. Oh my gosh, that was a mess. I had to like resize everything. And then, once you resize, the pixels show up bigger because there's more pixels. But, I ended up figuring it out. And really emphasizing, these metal features, doing shortcuts where I can. This is art and it takes forever. So, do what you got to do ethically. Once I figured out what all was going to be metal, everything started making sense again. I was like, okay, we're going to have our, regular iron. And then it's not carbon fiber, is it? The hard shit? Is it carbon fiber? No, it's something else. But it is carbon something. Anyways, that's the material of the breastplate. And also the knee pads and what is called the wrist cuffs. We have the hexes that obviously influenced a lot in terms of the thigh guards, the shapes in the cape, especially on the flaps. I was like, okay, there is going to be some, curvature, but we still need to emphasize that there is some angularity in here. I'm very proud of how the hands ended up. Like, I just felt so OP right there. I was like, oh my gosh, these hands. I felt like, because I added the eyes and the legs. So I was like, how am I going to like implement that somewhere else? And I decided to put them, or similar shapeage on the shoulders. And I felt like that tied that feature in together. And so, yeah, I started going in on the face and I was like, okay, I really like the face and like how it was turning at first, but I really want to see what Hexa looks like. Who is she? What ethnicity might, she be related to? And I was getting like, Indian, South Asian vibes. One thing that I really wish that I did generally was better shading on the face. I feel like it could have a little bit more value difference. Deeper shadows, basically. But then I realized I really didn't like that face. It was giving not necessarily cartoon, but it was giving a different style than mine. I was like, okay, like how can I reinvigorate this in the way that I want? And also, you know, give emotion that is true to this scene in the book. And so I just redid the whole thing. Faces are like my thing. I love doing faces. So I was like, we can do this simple. And so obviously, you know, I'm knocking it down. Okay. You can see, oh my gosh, I was like going at it. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe she got kicked in the face and now she just has this big, you know, gnarly, basically, bump on the side of her face. Ooh, and I'm really liking the shape language of the hair at this point. And a part of her face was kind of reminding me of Magic from Marvel Rivals. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe not all these things for the hair. She already has so much going down on her body. Like, it's so not necessary. I was so happy about changing the, because I really wanted to implement that shape, you know, in something physical and not just, you know, the shape of her magic. And so I was like, okay, so what if her dagger was like this, like half fan kind of thing? I don't know how to explain that better, but it is like this fan with sharp edges. But yeah, so we went in with the background. And so yeah, I was like, okay, what are other elements that we can put in here? I really want to emphasize that it was like dark in this area, but they are fighting, or she's uh in a tussle with fire mage also. uh our main character is a metal mage, but amongst other things, but his partner is a fire mage and they do not play. And so I felt like the fire aspect was really emphasizing that she's in some sort of danger, you know. And she's like what, like how can you even, how is this even possible that you are getting past me? You know, she just thinks that she's so good. And yeah, she's walking into that battle like, dang. So this is the final product. This is our finished hexa marching into the battle, puzzled but confident, you know, that she can change the tide. I'm very proud of how this came out. This was, I haven't done a full render in so long. And so I really put my mind to the test on this one. And I'm very proud of how it came out. So thank you all for watching. And I'd like to see you all soon. I will be posting. So if you could hit subscribe and like and comment if you can. I'd love to hear what you think about my art. I poured my heart and soul into this, so enjoy.